Right, this is a road test video for a Honda Civic. This is a 2.2 diesel ES model, registered SJ08HRR. Mileage at the start of this brief road test is 64,233 miles. The reason we do the road test is basically we're selling to customers now from all over the near continent and the extremes of the UK, and we just want customers to see the vehicles in operation prior to coming to us, and I can relay any information back that I can on the car. Worth pointing out that the road tests are done on exactly the same roads as you'll be road testing yourself if you come and see the car, so it should be very representative of what you should see and feel. I always start with the engines. CTDi engine's always a great engine. This one's no exception. There's no warning lights on the car. Engine run starts absolutely perfectly, settles to a lovely smooth idle, very even indeed. There's no strange vibrations, and it pulls to the rev range absolutely beautifully, it really does. So just stationary in there, sort of 850 RPM, whatever it is. Clutch in, clutch out. There's no change in engine note, there's no noises, no vibrations at all on there. I'll come back to the engine in a second, sort of further, just sort of talk about its kind of characteristics, but they said it's perfect. Clutch itself engages absolutely beautifully, very smooth clutch operation. As I said, there's no vibrations from the clutch at all, in or out or otherwise. Clutch then goes through to this wonderful 6-speed gearbox, and this is a fantastic example of one. I can't detect any wear in the linkage of the gearbox. It's a real lesson on how to make gearboxes a typical Honda box, in that sense that the gear changes are really smooth, beautifully done synchro mesh on it, and it's just so precise, which is remarkable considering obviously it's a cable operated box, and yet it still has the kind of a feeling of kind of mechanical purity about it, which I really love. It's got a real distinct action, very positive, easy. You slot it into gear. Sorry, I was just completely distracted then. The actual gear change is just so slick, but it has that precision which is rare to find with cable operated boxes. Steering of the car tracks absolutely bullet straight. There's no vibrations coming back through the steering of the car. There's no discernible wear in the steering either. It feels absolutely superb. Likewise, the chassis of the car, there's nothing coming up from underneath which suggests that it's got any untoward wear in it. You can hear it going over the bumps, but there's no kind of clatters or bangs that shouldn't be there, which would again suggest like anti-roll bar links or suspension struts, or little rubber bushes have perished. All seems and drives very, very tightly indeed, actually. Likewise, driving at speed, I'm just listening out for kind of wind noise that shouldn't be there, which would suggest that maybe had a windscreen or sunroof poorly fitted, but it's very, very quiet and very subdued in here. Brakes on the car, I'm just going to give them a bit of a jab. Yeah, really nice solid pedal. There's no vibrations, grinding noises or anything coming from underneath. Obviously we'll check it, we'll get the wheels off and check the car, we always do, but as it stands it drives and brakes really, really well indeed. Looking around the interior of the car, I think, and as I said on my previous videos, it's an absolute work of art in here. The dashboard's in a really lovely condition, but it's just such a nice place to sit and drive the car. You've got a really great driving position. You perched at exactly the right height in the car. Obviously the steering, the seat height is adjustable, but it's just a very natural driving position. But the dashboard itself is just such a lovely design. It's it's very, very, very kind of very modern, clearly, but it's also, what I love about it more than anything else is the fact that it's got this unique look to it, which couldn't be anything other than a Honda Civic. And what that isn't is at the expense of practicality and ergonomics, because the reality is, when you're driving a car, what you're doing most of the time is, you know, pressing primary switches and acting on sort of primary controls like indicators and lights and wipers and that kind of stuff, and they're all exactly where you'd expect them to be and work absolutely beautifully. But what's fantastic is this two-tier dashboard. So you've got really nice conventional radio display, so simple to use, and it's, you know, it's refreshing to find them like that. Then you've got this high-up display for your dual-zone climate control and radio readout and clock up there. And then my favourite part, the one that's directly in front of me, so you've got this high-up pod with the MPH on there. And what's utterly brilliant about that is that I can be looking ahead. I can see there's a lorry going to come around the corner there, but as he's doing it, I can still see the speed I'm doing, and it kind of adds your peripheral vision, so you're not taking your eyes off the road, and yet you're still taking in sort of that vital information, which is your speed, because none of us want to pick up speeding tickets or otherwise. But if you put your head down to check, quite often in most cars, you look at a conventional binnacle that's mounted further down, and unfortunately that means you take your eyes off the road momentarily and you can't help do it. So, but this is just utterly brilliant. It really is. Obviously on either side of that, I should point out, you've got a little econometer, just tells you how economically you're driving the car, and a little rev warning light. Just says as you get approaching the red line, it'll just illuminate red like in a sports car, but you know, that's more for kind of the quick revving VTEC engines. Down below that, we've got a more conventional pod, albeit even that's got kind of interesting features. You've got this kind of hologram effect coming out with the information display in the middle, and that all works absolutely perfectly. And a really big dominating rev counter, just instant information again. To the left of that, a temperature gauge which is running at 1/3, which is exactly the temperature you want to see on a Honda car, diesel, petrol or otherwise, and fuel gauge to the right hand side. Then on either side you've got your controls, obviously dual zone climate control there, and there's cold air coming out of the vents currently, and it's a sweaty summer's day today. It's lovely, but it shows the air conditioning is working. We've got buttons on this side here to sort of, down here to dim the dashboard lights, and on this side here you've got your traction control, and you can change your speedo readout from miles per hour to kilometers per hour, which is brilliant if you take the car abroad. Then obviously your start button, but it's all in really nice order. You know, any signs of wear, you know, ultimately this is still an 8-year-old car, you know, are very few and far between. It's just, we've not cleaned the car, we've not valeted it. Looking at the plastics, all in really good order. You know, whoever's had the car's been relatively gentle on the car. The only where I can see a tiny little bit on the gear lever top here, which is very common on these Civics actually. That was probably the only thing that was, you know, not poor quality, is probably too extreme really, but not what you'd expect from Honda, in all honesty. You know, it says you can buy second-hand ones or buy new ones for next to nothing, but it is only minor, but I'm nitpicking. The rest of it said, it's much harder to get across on a video is just how well these things drive. And I know this is all, it's very much down to kind of personal preference, but on the car here you've got a car which is very dynamic to drive. You've got very quick, accurate, sharp steering, which then matches the chassis of the car perfectly. It's been criticised by some for having too hard a ride, but I think it's an absolutely perfect compromise, especially for A and B roads and motorway driving. It's, you know, you've got a real sharpness when you go into tight corners particularly. It doesn't just keel over, and I hate cars that wallow about. I mean, here's a classic example, 90-degree right, turn in, and there's hardly any body roll in there at all. So passengers aren't getting thrown about. There's a tiny little turn of the steering wheel rather than flailing your arms around on cars that, you know, steering is geared slightly differently. But it just makes for a car that is not just an appliance to get you from A to B. You know, they are a genuinely nice and interesting car to drive. They've, you know, it's noticeable actually that I think we get a lot of quite sporty cars taken in on part exchange against these Civics, where, you know, maybe the manufacturers aren't making them anymore. You know, we used to get a lot of kind of Toyota Celicas and, you know, sort of Subaru type product against them, where people still wanted to have fun driving the car, but it had to be a practical family car, but it's also a really interesting place to sit, and it certainly ticks all those boxes, and that's why it's become so popular. And on top of that, you've got, you know, a level of build quality and reliability that is rare in this category. You know, when you compare it to kind of Golf, Audi A3 and BMW 1 Series, Ford Focus perhaps, maybe Astra, it's light years ahead of any of those in terms of reliability. They're much more reliable cars. We have very few problems with them. It's not to say they don't ever go wrong, because of course they do, they're cars. It's just that they go wrong far less often. And as I said, the whole purpose of this test drive is just to see if there's anything fundamental on the car, and if you're coming to us, you'll be thrilled by just how nicely the car drives. Actually, I will check the wipers. That's pet hate of mine. I can't stand smearing. There we are. Good. Right, I'm going to get the wipers replaced, because this one's smearing, and that really annoys me. So I'll just put a little note from my mechanic to get that done. So there you are. I found something to do. But as I said, if I've missed anything out on the video, please don't hesitate. Do give us a call, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.